Hi everyone, welcome back to Needle Workshop. My name is Emily and I'm back today with a new video for our newest release, which is the Akatsuki jacket from Naruto. It's not what it's going to be called on our store, but that's what it's inspired from, that's for sure. So today I'm going to go over all the fabrics that we use just to kind of give you an idea of what you might want to get to make your own. And as you can see, we have one fully finished here, so you get to look at it while I'm talking about it. It's great. I feel like we're so organized today. Ooh. Anyway, so yeah, let's get started. Let's take a look at what we have here. So I would say the first thing we want is obviously the black. What we ended up using is a cotton sateen. It's actually quite rigid, which is what we wanted. We wanted it to really keep its structure, and it sews really well. Like, it's really easy to sew. You can get some really nice clean seams. The downside to this, in my opinion, is how stiff it is. So because of how long the sleeves are, I do find that you don't get very organic pleats in it when you're, let's say, going like this, doing stuff with your hands. But when you're standing straight, it looks absolutely perfect. So it's like, it depends what you're looking for. I think alternatively, what I would personally suggest if I was to remake one for myself, I think a boiled wool or some kind of wool fabric would give it a bit more of a grungy look, but it would probably not be as stiff. So you would probably lose a little bit on the shape itself, but then you'd gain a little bit more flexibility in the garment. So it really depends on what you're looking to get. I think ultimately we're quite happy with how this looks. We really like the contrast with the rest of the fabrics, the different kind of sheens and mattes. It's always lovely, we love that. But I think something textured could have worked really well too, and it would have been lovely. So something to keep in mind. Now, for the clouds, we did a combination of two different fabrics. So we decided to use a different fabric for the clouds than for our lining. And the reason for that is that this way it gives, again, a little bit more variation in texture and colors, which I find really brings the costume to the next level. So what we ended up using is, for the white area, we actually went with a really light gray, just because pure white looked a little too stark, and this gives it a bit more of a grungy look, which we want. They're villains. I think that works. And it's just satin. It's probably, actually this one is a satin for lining, but we just used it to do this because it doesn't really matter. And for the red part of the cloud, we use this upholstery polyester fabric, which has this herringbone texture in it, and has like these variations of red, which I think looks so beautiful in combination with the really sleek black. Really makes them pop out. And obviously, to set it in place, we used a satin stitch, so keep in mind that you'll definitely need some embroidery thread to do the satin stitching around your cloud, if that's how you plan on making it. Other things you might want to get is double-sided adhesive to help position your clouds onto your fabric before satin stitching it in place. Otherwise, if you don't want to use satin stitch, the only alternative I can think of is something that doesn't fray, because otherwise your cloud will fray. You can always paint it on, obviously, but if you want to use fabric and you don't want to do satin stitching, I think your only alternative would be some kind of leather. I would try to find something fairly thin. You don't want a tad too much thickness because it'll really make this part rigid, which satin stitching already does. So that's something, again, to keep in mind. Other things you'll need a lining. We just went with a satin lining in red. I find these fabrics to be really shitty to sew, like terrible. I hate them. I would probably suggest instead something a little bit more rigid, again, because it's just easier to cut and then it's easier to sew. But we were up to the challenge. But because of just how long the sleeves are and how long the jacket is, it could be really tricky to cut, and it could be tricky to sew afterwards and not have it like pucker or look like hot garbage. But it's feasible. It does have a little bit of thickness to it because the really thin ones don't give great results, and you do want it to look somewhat nice so that if ever you're doing one of the characters that has an open collar, it looks nice on the inside. So that's also something to keep in mind. And this is also why you have to line your fabric, because it's just so visible that if you don't line it, it's gonna look a little weird. Because otherwise, I try to avoid lining because it makes it's a little harder to make than an unlined garment. And then next, obviously, you'll need a zipper, and the length of the zipper, let me just give you that, is, so this one is 71.5 centimeters. You want something around that length. If you can't find that exact length, that is not a problem. You can use something a little bit, oops. You can use something a little bit shorter or a little bit longer. It's very adjustable, but I would say not too much longer and not too much shorter. Maybe like give or take 5 centimeters. So, and I would recommend getting something that is not too thick, not thick, that the zipper teeth are not too wide. And you also ideally want a clap. I always forget what this, the clasp of the zipper. You want it to be square rather than rounded, so that it can hide behind the red overlap that is here.
Hey, editing Emily here. So I just wanted to add real quick that after having done 2 photo shoots with this costume, I've come to realize that I would actually strongly suggest a zipper that is still open-ended but that has 2 sets of clasps. One that allows you to open it up from top to bottom, and one at the bottom that allows you to open it up bottom to top. And the reason for that is when standing up, it is fairly unnecessary, but when posing, especially if you want to do some of the more intricate ninja poses, it's really uncomfortable and inconvenient to have a jacket that is essentially real and not fictional, so it doesn't really quite bend the way you want it to and could get in the way of certain poses. So if we ever end up making them in the future for clients, we would be using one of those types of zippers rather than the ones I used for initial 3.
And last but not least, you're gonna need some EVA foam. This is 2mm wide EVA foam, and we use it to keep the collar propped up properly, because otherwise the collar, because of how big it is, has a tendency to want to collapse on itself. And especially if you're using a more a less rigid fabric like I suggested earlier, you're definitely gonna want to use some EVA foam. And yeah, actually that kind of covers everything. It's a really short video, like there's not that much to look over because it's just one item, but there's still quite a few fabrics just for one items. That kind of completes our fabric overview. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions or you want additional suggestions, please feel free to leave us your comments in the description. No, in the comment section below. Obviously the link for the pattern will be available in the description box below, along with all our links to our social media accounts, which is Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So yeah, and make sure to ring the bell. No, make sure to subscribe. No, make sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell to be made aware of any upcoming projects and content. Can you tell today I don't have a teleprompter? I'm kind of like on the fly. So it's a little staggered, but maybe it's a little bit more genuine that way. So who knows? Anyways, I'm gonna go. I'm out of here. I hope you enjoyed, guys. I'll be back next week with some more videos on how to put together this beautiful jacket. All right, bye-bye. No, wait, I forgot. And as always, good luck with your projects, guys. Bye-bye.